Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am so excited for today's episode. We have a very special guest, Karen from Manifesting Better, where we are going to dive deep into the topic of how to manifest healthy relationships and break toxic patterns. We're talking about how to manifest it on a long term space, how to maintain it, and exactly what you need to do in order to make sure that you stop attracting behavior that is unhealthy and unwanted. Hello, Karen. It's nice to have you here.
It's so nice to be here. This is actually my first collaboration, and I'm really happy that it's with you because we have been talking about manifesting and we have been discussing these topics for years now together. So I'm really happy that this comes like my first collaboration gets to be with you, and I'm really happy to discuss this topic because I feel that this topic specifically, and as you know, we are planning to cover a lot of subtopics with this, will help a lot of people who are struggling with different kind of situations when it comes to their relationships, and we can target specific areas of that. Because what I have seen is people talk about general things when it comes to manifesting a relationship, but rarely do we pick up specific areas where we can go deeply into detail with that. So I'm really excited to do this with you today.
Thank you so much. I definitely love your views and your perspective on self concept and manifesting. And our views have always aligned. And, every time I talk to you, I thought like this would be great to be out there in the world because these insights are very unique and straight to the point. So, really excited to dive into this right now.
Me too. And one thing that we have always seen in any of the conversations that we have had is it doesn't always remain about one topic. We just keep on going to multiple topics because we have so many similar views about similar things, and it's just great to discuss it because I am absolutely sure it will help a lot of people.
Yeah, totally. And what I would love to start with was a common thing that I've been speaking about and seeing with my clients, which is a pattern of having avoidant partners, avoidant
Hmm.
versions of people, however we want to call it. So, do you want to start by pitching in why do you think people attract that intentionally or unintentionally? And what would be the first thing to look at in order to break that loop?
So, this is actually a topic close to my heart because before I got into this concept of manifestation, I used to struggle with relationships like these too. So, if any of you don't know, like because I have talked about it a lot on my personal channel, but I am someone who used to struggle a lot with relationships in the past. I'm talking about years back. I had consistent third parties, one sided relationships, and even if I was able to lock someone down, like that's if that's how we say it, those relationships always made me feel that I had to walk on eggshells or that my partner was not just that into me. So I understand that people primarily who are manifesting a specific person or love, they are primarily struggling with this only, that they are able to attract some version of their partner, but either that version becomes avoidant or they keep on seeing that there is an avoidance pattern in multiple partners that they meet. So it's the first person, and then when they meet the second person at the start, it's something different. And then the more they connect with them, they see that this person also turns out like the previous one. And I have seen that it's not just one reason that you attract an avoidant partner. I have seen that there are multiple reasons that people usually start to project, and that is why they end up attracting these partners. One of like the first one I would say is when in the past love has been scarce for you, it seems that that makes you think that that is what love is supposed to be. And that is
Mhm.
why sometimes when you actually are with someone, and it doesn't matter if at the start they are different or from the start they are being avoidant, that is what you call love. So you automatically end up getting into that situation more. You automatically end up liking that person more. And what attracts you is the avoidance. Because when
Mhm.
love comes freely, it feels weird. For
Mhm.
those people who are coming from that place where love in the past has been scarce, this was me too. Another one that I have seen is there is a lot of confusion with what is movement and what we can call a breadcrumb, or where you are actually settling
Mhm.
in a relationship. And I feel that a lot of people would benefit more, and we can discuss this on the go more. But I feel that a lot of people will benefit more from learning what the distinguishing factor between these two is, so that they don't confuse movement with someone actually just being avoidant. But
Right.
also, I feel that a third part to this is, a lot of times when we are coming from a lot of insecurities, or where maybe love has become the biggest topic in our life, even normal behaviors, someone else having a life outside of me, or someone else focusing on other things but me, can make me also feel that the other person is being avoidant, which might not always be the case.
Yep. Yep. Very true. I love that you talked about this point where you can label something as an avoidant, but really what it is this is what a healthy relationship is, but it's unfamiliar. When you are in a healthy connection, both people will have a life outside of each other, and that doesn't mean that you don't have a life together. It's that you have a life
Absolutely.
together and you have your own individual goals, they have their own individual goals, and you come together as two whole people who carry this relationship interdependently together. However, as you said also, that when people are very familiar with growing up in unstable dynamics and we think this is what love is, what tends to happen is that we find ourselves looking for the chase. The ego loves the chase. It thrives on that high cortisol that they experience during the no contact.
Hmm.
And so that distance gets created again and again and again. And even though everybody says, I want movement, sometimes movement or getting the love that you want can be even more triggering because it's unfamiliar for the ego to
Yep.
have something sustainable and stable. And this is why when somebody stays, when somebody's around, when somebody's reaching out, we tend to feel restless. Like, when is the other shoe going to drop? So I would
And
say, go on.
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
I would say a huge part to this is a safety piece. There's safety
Hmm.
in not having, safety in being left behind, safety in the unfamiliarity, in the uncertainty. And when we are able to look at what this is giving us and be able to pull that out and make it safe to have something stable and long term, that's when the nervous system relaxes into having somebody who is available emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally.
Yep. And you use the term nervous system here. So, would you want to explain a little bit more about that? I think this is a topic that we both have been talking about a lot, but for someone who doesn't know, what would you like if you have to explain it to them? How would you explain the nervous system and the concept of that?
Okay, so we have the brain and the body. The brain, or the mindset piece, is where the thoughts sit, the thoughts land, and we can change our thoughts, and that's a huge piece of becoming the version of you that you desire to be. Because when you're a different version, you think in a different way, and the perspectives you hold on life are different. However, sometimes upon changing our thoughts, we feel a great level of resistance in the body, meaning sensations in the body show up where you feel like you're closing up. The anxiety starts to come up
Hmm.
when you try to shift states. And that's because the body is still living in that past experience where love didn't last. And so there is like this disconnect between the mind and the body. The mind is here in the present moment today in 2026, but the body could be in 2020, 2003, still reliving that experience. And so when
Yep.
we are able to neutralize these emotions in the body and bring it back to the present, our body is able to settle in the safety of having it now, and it's able to process that in the now moment. And that's when the body relaxes into having it. So that's really what nervous system work is really about. And it's more than just the breath work and the regulation. It's being able to hold in your system, being kept, being stayed with, being loved.
Yep. And I would like to add one point to that. And this is how I explain it to my clients. This is the simplest way I can explain it is that think about a switch. So let's say a light bulb switch. Your body also has a switch, and there is a sympathetic nervous system, there is a parasympathetic nervous system. So the
Mm-hmm.
parasympathetic nervous system is, in the easiest way possible to explain, is the calm nervous system. This is where your body is not registering a threat. And when the switch turns on, when it goes to the sympathetic nervous system, your body is constantly anticipating that, just like you said, the other shoe is about to drop. Or your body goes back to, let's say, the 2003 or 2000, but you are in 2026. The issue that I see with this is, in some situations, and generally in life, this is actually a great mechanism for you to be safe. So when you are able to identify something as a threat, that is great because that keeps you safe. But this is where the difference between acute and chronic comes into the picture. So acute means when you are suddenly seeing some threat outside of you and you are instantly getting triggered, which is easily recognizable because the intensity of that trigger is high. But where people end up struggling is when they're in a chronic state of survival mode, when they are chronically
Mm-hmm.
turned, like where their body is chronically looking for threats. It's because your body doesn't feel fully safe, but it doesn't know why it doesn't feel fully safe. So it keeps on looking for threats because it wants to understand the reason why it doesn't feel safe. Hence, even when things are going good, when things are going as per what you want, you can sometimes try to manufacture threats because you feel safe when a threat is there. And when a threat exists, you would rather have it be known that this is a threat rather than have the uncertainty that I don't know what can hurt me. This is classic self sabotage.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And when it comes to like self-sabotage, that is a huge topic I can like go down into in so many ways. But it's like it's so easy to say that you want something, but you can sabotage your way to success without realizing the true reason is that there's this fear of when I have this relationship, it will fall apart if I am seen as I am. That if you're seen for certain qualities and certain flaws, then this person will be turned off by them and leave them. And that is a huge thing that we don't talk about, which is this lack of self acceptance piece, feeling not enough. And so we create barriers, third parties, distance, no contact, silence to avoid getting too close and too seen. And that's why it looks like this constant back and forth of like 1 minute they're in and then they're out. And it keeps happening with different people. And that sabotage can be internal and it can also be external, meaning internally,
Absolutely.
we can be spiraling. Let's say a moment
Hmm.
I've had this where I would lash out at nothing, literally on my own. And in that moment, I'd be like, if anybody sees me like that, they would hate me and leave me. That is me immediately internally sabotaging myself. Where instead I can acknowledge where I can improve as a person, change that habit, and allow myself
Hmm.
to be accepted, loved, and seen. And then when it comes to the external piece, it can be something as simple as the self-deprecative jokes. You talk to somebody, they tell you, you're good looking and whatnot, and then you make a joke about yourself or you brush off the compliment. Things like that where you're constantly like pushing love away, pushing the person away, not accepting receiving.
And I think that this is something I have seen more in women in my personal experience. A
Mm-hmm.
big reason being because what I have, and this is an experience over, I have dealt with more than 5,500 clients. So this is something I have seen a common denominator in women who struggle with receiving love is that when they were younger or at the early stages of their life, they were made to believe that they are the only ones who can take care of their emotions, that men outside of them or their families, they cannot rely on them. That is why they always have to be on guard. They always have to protect themselves. They always have to protect their energy because they have never been, they have never felt safe enough to let go of that. Hence, when
Mm-hmm.
someone makes them feel that way, it feels that all of the knowledge that they have gained about relationships, their whole identity is crashing down. Because when someone outside of them makes them feel safe, they're constantly worried that this person will also pull away. Because that happened at some point in their past, that happened at some point in their life, maybe with their parents, maybe with their childhood guardian figures, maybe with a past boyfriend or a relationship. This has happened that they were vulnerable and then they were just left. And because that has happened, and that can happen because of multiple reasons, right? We don't know someone's past, so we are not able to comment on that. But it feels that because of that, they are consistently on guard. So they always have to take charge, they always have to allow themselves to be the controller. And when the other person, even if the other person is taking control, even if they find someone who is ready to give them that safety, who is ready to allow them to be vulnerable and just be themselves, they just feel that this person will not take charge properly, because that has not happened for them in the past. So it becomes a new topic for them. It becomes something foreign for them to experience. And that is why they sometimes push these people away. And it becomes a cycle, right? So when the other person is coming into your life, they are coming from a place where they don't know about your insecurities, they don't know about your defense mechanisms, so they
Mm.
are giving you love. And when they are giving you love, they are providing you that safety. They sometimes are not able to understand why you won't just take it, right? And when that happens, because they don't know how your internal dialogue is working, because they don't know what your body and your mind has been through, sometimes when you're not taking it, when you're not allowing yourself to be, let's say, loved or be cherished or be chosen, the other person feels that maybe there is something wrong that they are doing, which can sometimes cause the other person to pull away a little bit. And when the other person pulls away, the partner here starts to feel that, you know what, I knew the other shoe was about to drop, look, he's pulling
Mhm.
away, which
Mm.
can lead them to them being more defensive, more protective of their energy. When they do that, the other person feels that more, and it just becomes a cycle, right? And the thing with this is, there is no one event that this happens in. This happens in small
Right.
small daily events, and because of which you are not able to understand the root cause of it sometimes. And that is why when sometimes you will ask your clients, you must have seen this too, that where
Yeah.
do you feel the relationship started to deteriorate, and they would say, I don't know, it just started to gradually go down. But it wasn't gradual. It was a one small thing, then another small thing, then another small thing. And when you look back, you see and you notice how much your relationship has changed because of your own your own protective mechanisms.
Right. I completely agree with that. I definitely saw as well, like, just like we say, oh, to remove a third party, you have to realize you're the third party. The things that it applies the same thing here as well, which is you're also an avoidant in a way. Yes, you might have habits that look like anxiously attached, which is why you have that avoidant. It's like if you chase, they have to run. However, you also have inner conversations and habits
Hmm.
that create or add to the dynamic of avoidance that fall under the category of avoidance, if we want to call it that. And one of the main things that I see, the main issues, is communication. Avoiding speaking about their feelings in case the partner pulls away. And what if I'm affirming it by telling the partner how I'm feeling? Not asking questions to gain clarity. So, as a result, you form your own conclusions and then you act defensive. As you
Yep.
said, you're pulling away yourself to see if the partner is going to notice that they're upset and reach out to them and try to beg them to be together. And it's just like you created your own fight internally before you had even a conversation with this person. I know I'm speaking logic here, but it's also, it falls under the line of manifestation, because when we are manifesting, we're not just looking for, the flowers and the princess dreaming. It's like there's a life that you do together, and part of that is going to be communication. Every single day that you spend with this person, you're going to be speaking to each other, and you're supposed to be able to share any worries that you have about career, about the relationship, about yourself, and
And
be,
disagreements, daily disagreements.
yeah.
Yep. That always remains a part of the relationship.
Right. And I think this is also an important one, which is like differentiating the line between a disagreement and an unhealthy relationship.
Hmm.
Because what I've noticed personally from experience, when I have healthy connections, we don't fight, rarely, ever, but we do disagree on certain things, and that's okay. We find middle ground. Whereas constantly fighting, berating, putting each other down, having to be right, that's when it turns into a toxic or rather unhealthy dynamic. And it's important to create that distinction because a lot of times people take a disagreement as misalignment, take a single argument as, well, it's over, they're going to pull away. And so when we are able to distinguish like the differences between what is actually avoidance and what is actually an aspect of a relationship that happens sometimes, that's when we can sort of stop bringing in our conclusions from the past into the present. And we can be more open to actually seeing the person for who they are rather than placing our own baggage and our own fears onto them, projecting that, and then creating a story, and then creating a fight accordingly, and then pulling away.
So many points that I have to that. Thank you so much for this explanation. So, 3 points that I would like to talk about. First, I think in just if you will see commonly on Instagram, on social media, there is a connotation that someone who is an avoidant is actually someone who is bad. But I don't think that that is actually true. So, being anxiously attached or being an avoidant, I have seen that they are two sides of the same coin. What actually is happening is you two are different people. One is an avoidant and one is, let's say, anxiously attached. You both have the same need, which is to not be hurt in love. But the way that you go forward trying to fulfill that need is different. So, for someone who is an avoidant, they try to take space because primarily they are worried that if they don't take space, they will ruin that relationship somehow. And they feel that providing themselves space will actually help them understand what is happening, and then they would be able to deal with that. So their emotional, their intellectual, their mental capacity has been gone. Like they are just the whole situation is making them feel so overwhelmed that in that moment they are just not able to deal with it. For someone who is an anxiously attached person, in that moment what they do is they try to repair the connection somehow, and they just try to do it as fast as possible because they are afraid that if I give this space it would mean that this has ended. That is the only difference between this. Now, it is a common misconception that an avoidant doesn't have emotions, but that's not true. They are just dealing with their emotions in a different way. That is one. The second thing that you said, which is amazing, that disagreements and an unhealthy dynamic, you have to understand the difference between the two. And this is a common question that I get from clients. And the thing that I would say to this is the disagreements that you have shouldn't be about, and it can be about that, but in the end, there are some things that you would need to come to an agreement about, and there are some things that you can just disagree about. So, how do you want to live your life as a couple is something you would eventually have to agree about. If you guys want to be together, if you guys want to be married, if you guys don't want to be married, if you want to have kids, if you don't want to have kids, where do you want to live? These are things that as a couple you would have to be in agreement about, right? Not at the start, but with conversation. There has to be a conclusion to these. But what happens is when these for a better understanding, let's label these conversations as level 5 conversations, right? But there are also level 1 or 2 conversations, like what would you want to have for dinner, how did should I go and meet this friend or not, uh, how did you talk to my friend this way, all these small disagreements, right? Or what kind of food do you like to eat, where would you want to go for a movie, or do you never take charge? These are small level 1 or 2 conversations. But when our mind is not able to distinguish between these two, we think of both as a similar level of threat, right? So when level 2 happens, we assume that this is also a level 5. And that is why I think that some people think that when this will like any disagreement would result into the relationship ending, because that has happened with them previously. And
Mhm.
the third point that I would uh, that actually ties down to this is a big reason why this happens is because there is a common practice that is uh, very common nowadays in relationships, is that every disagreement results into a breakup. So every time
Indeed.
you disagree, we will just break up, but it's actually not a breakup. You both know that. It's actually, you know that you will connect again. Once we start to use that as an escape in relationships, what happens is there is a fight, and then you both, let's say one person is anxiously attached and the other one is an avoidant. You both have had different conversations about the same topic, and you both want different things. A fight happens, and one person pulls away, the other person tries to make it work, but then there is also ceiling to that. So because they are not able to instantly make it work, they just start to think that maybe the other person isn't interested, and then somehow a breakup happens. Now that breakup is actually not a breakup, but the conversation that you were talking about just vanishes. Because after a few days, when your nervous system calms down, you recognize that maybe we didn't have to break up at all. And then you get together. But the conversation that was the real reason why you guys were fighting rarely gets pulled back, and you rarely talk about it again. And then the same cycle repeats when there is a different conversation that happens. So I think that once you start to understand that an avoidant person is not really bad and an anxious person is also not really bad, both are just different sides of the same coin, and
Right.
you look at each other compassionately, you will start to handle these arguments better, and then this calms your nervous system down like nothing else.
Right. I love that you said that. And when you were speaking about relationships, coming to an end after a disagreement, I also notice it's a bit of pardon me, a trend that I'm seeing, which is like, oh, just leave him. Oh, just end it because the person made a mistake, right? And there is this need to prove that you're not a doormat, that you're not chasing, that you're not
Correct.
insecure, that you don't need them, which is really a reaction. It's a reaction to the fear of going back to being codependent, a reaction to the fear of like being too attached to the person and then ending up in a toxic relationship that you're not able to leave because you don't trust yourself. When the self trust is embodied, there will not be that need to prove that you're not the same person that you were before. There's not going to be this need to prove that you're not going to be in a toxic relationship where you're stuck. And instead, it's going to allow you to also tear down this wall. And when you do set a boundary, it's going to come from that self respect, self love space, and embodied space. And
Rather than trying to